This conference will now be recorded.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for coming. We have, at the last board meeting, there were some questions about the homestead housing project, about rentals versus purchases and things like that. So we invited Caitlin Wargo from Adirondack Roots, who's they're sort of the project managers of the project, and she's here as a guest tonight. And she can talk to us a little bit about what's happening, what the future plans are, and the timelines. Roy's here because he also knows intimately what sort of the original plans and things like that were. Oh,
Aren't you supposed to?
Today is July 31st, 2024, and it is 4 p.m. Thank you for coming. Okay, so that's the beginning. Caitlin, if you want to, introduce yourself. And
yes, absolutely.
You can come
from
up.
My seat.
You can sit up here with the board.
I need to have my back to everyone. So, hello, I'm Caitlin Wargo. I'm Associate Director of Adirondack Roots, and today is my 1-year anniversary at that organization, actually, now that I think about it. And give you a quick update on where the project stands. We know the land is in the hands of the municipality now. You guys have closed on the land a few months ago. And there, with the Northern Border Regional Commission funds, there was a little bit of funding left over that we wanted to spend on the project. And so we have a contract with the engineering firm to do a preliminary site plan. And that there was some site planning done for the grant application and for your grant application, but now that we're moving forward, we need something more specific that's going to help us identify engineering needs, septic location, things like that, that will then help us refine the pricing and move forward. So that'll be done in the next few weeks. We also have a bid in from the same engineer to do some other work that we will be moving forward on our end, just all the different kinds of pre-development work that is necessary to move a project. Once those things are done, we'll be able to just review the pricing that we have from when the grant application was put forward for the small rental development initiative that we were awarded last year. And then we've got a whole slew of things that they'll need from us to move toward closing, which they would like to do within 2 years of the grant award.
How many units are there?
So we anticipate, and Dave Whitford, who's a certified architect and is on Adirondack Roots staff, wasn't able to be here tonight, but he did the original concept plans, and then talking with MJ Engineering is refining that a little bit based on having walked the property once the snow left this spring. Still looking at 6 units in 3 2-unit buildings. And originally we had hoped for 4 standalone homes. At some time in the future there'd be room. And right now the number of those homes, based on the setbacks and things, that's what's going to be determined through this preliminary site plan and then some future sketches.
So that's one of the things that right now the town has agreed. At the last meeting, we modified our contract with MJ Engineering to provide the services for that type of planning. Is that what they're going to be looking at too?
That's correct. And I have both quotes here if you want me to go into specifics about what the studies will be doing.
Does anybody on the board have any questions? I mean, you want to go into the quotes? Let's go into the quotes.
Let's go into the quotes. All right, great. So the one that right now is under, you all have signed off on and is moving forward with the Northern Border Regional Commission. That's going to provide site survey, parcel boundaries, easements of records, noting adjoining property, all the service features, a removals plan, a layout plan for general building dimensions, spatial relations, roadway, parking, et cetera, fire access, material plan with sidewalks, roadway, et cetera, utility plan, general grading, landscaping, illumination, and site details. So really, once that's done, we'll have a much better idea of exactly where things can go. We are anticipating needing that some of these, the locations, as we have sketched them out, are not going to adhere to current zoning, and so a variance will probably be needed, possibly a preliminary variance to move forward.
Go ahead, please.
And when that goes, good seeing all you guys from this side of the table. And just to elaborate on what she just said, is the variance is gonna be key for future planning, because part of this whole idea was we want to do the rentals, because that seemed like the more desperate need we had in the community,
Mhm.
but we still want the home ownership houses in there, a couple of them, 2,
Mhm.
3, as many as we can possibly
Yep.
get there. Which, again, just to remind everyone, the land under these homes will be similar to what they already do. The land is always owned by the housing trust. The structure itself would be owned by the individual, and it would always be obtainable housing for people. And that's the beauty about this whole project, is in a time right now where you ride around town, a lot of landlords are getting out of the renting business, and you can debate why they're doing it, but it hasn't really at this point nothing to do with the short-term rental thing. It has more to do with the cost of running apartment buildings, to tenant rights versus landlord rights and things like that. Because I can name probably 3 or 4 places right now. One just closed here in town, and the other 2 or 3 are on the market. So the beauty about this project is it will always be attainable housing, both rental housing and hopefully long-term home ownership housing as well, because that's the beauty of having Adirondack Roots run it, because they're a not-for-profit organization that will always perpetually keep it for affordability for the locals that live here.
One of you explained to us, as far as the rentals, this is not income driven. This is available for anybody, or is it
No,
income driven?
because of this grant, it is going to be income driven, but the guidelines are pretty generous actually for what we all make around here. So I think there will be, it's a start too. I mean,
Right. Well, I'm just concerned in the sense of, we have rentals, and then, like some of the ones in Placid were like $40,000 limit, and you have 2 people with jobs, and all of a sudden they're making $60,000-$70,000. Well, that doesn't help our workforce, because now they still don't have a place to live, and the only people we're giving a place to live are,
I totally agree with you. It's, and the issue is so complex that I think this is just the start of what we hopefully can do. Maybe all of us can get together and figure out how we can take care of the higher income people for apartments. And maybe that's where the long-term housing will be, because you do have, what is the income level for the project in Keene right now you're doing?
Oh, in Keene, yeah. So right now, we're looking at 100% to 120, depending on which income stream you use, of the area median income.
So what
in
does
Essex
that
County.
translate to dollars?
So for example, a couple who recently applied, so if we got 2 people in the household, it's based on earning of the entire household. So if there's 3 children, you have a much higher threshold versus a double income, no children,
Sure.
in the $70,000 range.
So like right now, if it's a family of 3, it's 92,000
Which is
for the home.
For area median income.
which is pretty high for some people. I mean, that's attainable for the kind of people you're trying to.
Well, I was just worried that, 2 people with, $20 an hour jobs, and all of a sudden they're gonna be like, oh, well, you're over the income, but it doesn't sound like that's gonna be the case.
No, and the other thing to consider, guys and gal, is there really is no affordable housing here in town for even apartments now. You used to have Bonneview Road, that's no longer, they don't have to rent to anyone under a certain income or in a certain income bracket. So I think this would be a great start. I'm glad to see you went through with bringing Adirondack Roots in, because they know what they're doing.
Can I ask Adirondack Roots a question? So are we different from Keene?
Well, yes, because the current project that we're developing right now is rentals. And so those will be always available at the certain rents that are affordable to people making a certain percentage of the area median income, 80% and below the area median income. Now, the homes that we're looking to build in the future in the next stage of this will be similar to Keene. If we all decide to move forward together on that and you like what's going on, we can Those go into the Adirondack Community Housing Trust, and the reason they're so affordable is because the Community Housing Trust, which is operated by Adirondack Roots, actually owns the land beneath, and so we own the land. They just purchase what they call the improvements on top. So when you couple that with whatever programs are available from the state to bring the cost down, certainly having the land being provided by the town makes this possible. It's simply impossible otherwise it doesn't pencil out for any kind of for-profit developer to have income levels where we are for either purchasers or renters. So they would both be perpetually affordable going forward, but they would have different mechanisms because one can be sold and one is rented. Now, in the housing trust, when you go to sell a home, so say someone income qualifies to purchase a home, this is what's happening in Keene. I think the sort of average ownership period is in the 4 to 5 year range for a trust home at other community housing trusts. You then have to sell that to someone who also income qualifies. You can leave it to a direct descendant, but most folks are turning them over, but they will have to be income qualified, and that's how the structure works. It's not a silver bullet. Our housing problems are tremendous all over the place, but it is definitely one piece of a solution of a puzzle that's going to help ease some of the pressures on local folks affording housing.
So in terms of a timeline, I know we're getting the paperwork done in the surveys and stuff. When we get that finished, how are we in relation to what the Keene project was in terms of
timing? So what we're looking at right now, and we're still right in there, is doing all these kind of assessments, engineering, planning, whatever variances we need, all those things this summer and fall, and then looking to close next spring and be able to move forward.
Keene is almost done on the first two, is that correct?
Keene has
Foundations.
4 foundations in right now.
Okay.
And I was actually just talking to Rory, they're moving a little differently than we had anticipated, which is that they were gonna drop all 4 houses in stages over this fall, but I think they're looking to drop them all next month because they're modulars. I should have talked about that. We're looking at modular units again, just like we're looking at Keene. So they are similar from a structural standpoint. What that means is it can be built in a factory setting with a lot of controls, both for materials. You don't have to deal with weather. There's people who come in, and the state has energy efficiency guidelines, so you have inspections there, then inspections on site. But the Keene houses have been ready for a couple of months and waiting for these foundations to be done, for us to close on the financing, which we just did.
Just one more to remind you guys that you all were here when I was here last time. The beauty of this property that the Cordings sold to us well below market value is it goes all the way to the river. So there's always, we talked about before about the idea of doing a nature trail there that people in the community, people that reside in the housing can go down, possibly do an observation deck to the river, things like that. And there is the Environmental Bond Act money that we should probably be trying to get a chunk of. And I know we talked to like Dan Steck and Billy Jones about getting some additional money to help with the driveway infrastructure. We're gonna have that. We talked about the highway crew helping to clear the road going in there. We're gonna have to help them with figuring out the water line and possibly underground utilities. So there is still some more stuff. Hopefully we can help you get grants for or figure out.
Right. And I think one of the things that we've talked about on our end is coming to an MOU with the town of Wilmington that sets in writing some of the things we've agreed to over the process of the last several months, especially as we go into, we've got a quote for about $35,000 for the next section of engineering that follows the preliminary site plan that's going on right now. So, but one of those things to agree on is the land that the homes, either the rentals or the homes are purchased. I think the original intent is that land would be transferred to Adirondack Roots at some point. We haven't talked about that timing or exactly how much, but we'd have to agree on. I think our concept was that only where the homes are would be transferred to us, and then roads would be maintained by the town, and then any nature trails and all that would be, that land would stay with the town, and then be whatever improvements and public
Yeah, no,
access you wanted.
for just 1 second. I mean, we still have the regulatory permits to go
Mhm.
get.
Mhm.
And then we'll learn certainly a lot more if they put conditions on certain things
Okay.
they're
Which they will.
asking us to do.
Mhm.
So for sure, I agree with the memorandum of understanding
Great.
too. I think if we get this, we'll get into the regulatory kind of deal.
You had mentioned roads, and maybe, so the town would be responsible for this housing development, snow removal and things like this, or is this something that we have to still
I think
discuss?
we have to nail that down. Oh,
Only if the whole conversation was there, only if it became a town road.
Hmm.
If it ends up being a driveway, it's gonna be the responsibility of.
So there'd be like a homeowners association or
Or
something?
Adirondack Roots would take care of it, like if
Mhm.
your other one,
Paid
you
for
have a
by the
caretaker,
rents,
right?
exactly.
Or you
A
contract
service,
with a local
yep,
contractor.
exactly.
Just backing up a second, on the whole, like, once you do your deal with Adirondack Roots, which I totally support, if they ever disband or anything, that property has to go back to the town, because that was part of the deal with the Courtings, is it would always remain affordable housing property or owned by the town of Wilmington. They didn't want to see the town declare it surplus and then end up selling it for
Mhm.
a ridiculous amount of money. So I think we talked with Megan before about the idea of doing a 99-year lease. Now, I do know that in order to get this grant money, the 1.2 million or whatever it is, you guys have to borrow the money, and I assume that the state of New York is gonna want some kind of security. So your board may have to be a little flexible here on how you work that out.
Yeah, and I've said, I'm not that keen on 99-year leases legally, because it always ends up with a question of searching for the lost heir. But in any case, yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, I know that the conditions that they put on the deed are accepting the Northern Borders grant, run with the land, and they're sitting there saying you can't use it for anything other than the affordable housing as described in the grant application and things like that. But I don't really want to start thinking too much about the law stuff.
Can I ask, when this was first brought to the community's attention and when Roy first raised this idea, my understanding, I think most people's understanding was that these would be owner-occupied homes. And I was very enthusiastic about that. Maybe I'm on an island here, that's totally possible. I'm less enthusiastic about the rental properties. So can we talk a little about how that decision was made to go from owner-occupied to rentals?
That's probably more me than
Okay.
Adirondack Roots, first of all. It sort of evolved, Tim, because at the time, there wasn't any clear pathway for us to get housing grants like Keene got. And it really boiled down to what was our most immediate need. People need rental apartments right now more than anything. I mean, the property that they were talking about in Keene, about $160,000, even people that want that property are even balking at that price. So our most immediate need then, and back when we made the decision to help Adirondack Roots apply for the grant on our community's behalf, was to help the most immediate issue, which was housing. People need apartments. You can feel good about it, and I say this in all sincerity, you can feel good about it because it's only 6 affordable housing. And it'll never be sold to someone for profit. They'll never turn into STRs, they'll never become second homes. But the whole idea when we did that was that this would be the starting point, and possibly we could still do either on that site or somewhere else here in Wilmington, the long-term housing that I think we really all want.
Owner-occupied.
Owner-occupied.
Mhm.
But this is the start.
I think we all probably share similar concerns about some of these apartment complexes and what happens at some of these apartment complexes. But I mean, I'm glad to hear from the community if I'm off on an island on this. And so and I also should say and ought to say that I of course appreciate, and we all appreciate what you do. And I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade,
No,
but
everyone's concerned about the future of their communities, and I can say that I'm a renter. I moved here 13 years ago. I'm still a renter, and in a wonderful home that when that gets sold, I'm not quite sure what my next move is going to be. And having been involved in economic development and now in housing for the last 10 years, I can say that the entry level homes, either rental or for purchase, are what the lack of those is what is stymieing so many businesses from bringing in new employees, at working salary levels, and there's definitely folks who are struggling at higher salary levels in with the hospitals or other employers, but those entry level homes so that someone can come into town, get a foothold, not use more than 30% of their income for housing, save some money, and then potentially buy something else down the road, I think is really important for a community's health. And so that's the perspective, I certainly personally come from and why I got involved with Adirondack Roots. So I think it is a key, rentals are a key part of the ecosystem. And
oh, I
they
don't
serve
question
a role
that. I don't
there.
question that at all.
And as far
I
as the
just,
narrative
for this
on,
project, our
Gotcha.
initial understanding was
but
something
as
else.
far as
I
the
see.
narrative
Yeah.
on this project, I think over a year and a half ago, started saying this was like the Cordings were brought totally on board with what we were doing and stuff like that. So
As far as
it didn't just happen all of a sudden. It was more of the immediate need, the grant money we could get, and phase one of hopefully several phases for getting some attainable housing here in town. And again, remember, six units. We just lost 3 in the center of town, and that wasn't due to anything, but they're getting out of the landlord business. So,
6 units will help 6 families, so.
and they're gonna be nice, they're gonna be nice, and I can say this about Adirondack Roots, is they run other rental property, and what community is it, Mariah?
Mm-hmm.
And
West Park.
Tommy Scott's father at the time said that, Tommy would certainly vocalize it himself back when he was supervisor if there was any issues, and from all I've heard, you guys do a fairly good job with keeping things under control.
Yep. And we just hired a great new manager for that building. So, we have managed properties, for years and looking forward to managing this one.
Can I pop in here?
Hi, Laura.
Hi. I agree, Tim. Thank you for bringing that up. Roy, I just had a question about the process. Like, I don't remember it being brought up with Adirondack Roots at any of the other meetings. I could have missed a meeting, or maybe I'm not aware of it, but I just was wondering when that happened.
I'm not specifically sure, but I certainly, right from the get-go, said we needed a not-for-profit organization like Adirondack Roots to take the lead, and that the town, in any venture, shouldn't be in the building business. So right from the get-go, I was consistent on that message. And I believe Adirondack Roots, or what, HAPAC, I think the old name of the organization was certainly mentioned. And I'm sure I mentioned it in some of my weekly supervisors columns as well.
Okay.
Is that what you meant? I'm not sure if that's.
It's fine. It's fine.
Now, Laura, you have a follow-up, Laura?
Nope, I just appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, and Tina, you got some?
So who does the application approval for like the rentals and stuff? How's that?
We have a committee of staff members, and we're the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Administrators for Clinton County and Essex County. So we have a very long history in evaluating incomes, and so we have a whole process that we're going through right now with Keene of documentation.
I know how the Keene one works.
Yep, documentation that we, yep.
I didn't know how the applications would work for the apartment side. I was just wondering how that was gonna work if we did the 6 buildings.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I say I don't have exact information on how that would work.
I wasn't sure how that was gonna work. So I wanna make sure that, because we've been sitting here talking and you said about people coming in and needing housing and different people coming to the area relocate. I wanna make sure that we're looking at people locally that are gonna be able to take the apartments that are coming available, because that's what we're looking for, is people
It's
locally
people locally.
being able to
Mhm,
find the
mhm.
housing in our area.
For sure, for
So
sure.
that's why I'm wondering how that application was going to work for that area.
So now that you've refined your question, I have a better answer for you, which is that the state funds require us to do a marketing plan essentially that sets out how we're going to get this information out to the communities. So for example, in Keene, we do have a Keene housing preference for, so we did roll out that opportunity with the Keene Housing Task Force and then put it out in social media in the Keene area before we did a larger press release and opened it up to the community. So we haven't gotten to that part of the process yet with the state, but part of the funding stream, it's mandated that we do the same type of marketing plan that they then review and approve. And then we also have to, you follow, fair housing guidelines, and that, someone with a disability or someone who maybe, struggles with dyslexia and can't read, we would get them some help to read it so that we make sure it's accessible to folks to understand.
And you said they were 6, all 2 bedrooms? Or that part hasn't, you didn't
That's,
say yet?
I believe them to be 2 bedrooms, and I think based on the site plan and where things are gonna lay out, we'll determine exactly how they will be, but that was the original comment.
Can I ask 2 questions now? We hear this term, Section 8 housing.
Mhm.
Can you explain what that means?
Yes.
And is this Section 8 housing?
So no, it's not.
Okay.
But the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program is a program of subsidy, where someone who is making an income that they can't afford an apartment at market rate, then gets a subsidy. They have to demonstrate their income level, and it is a lower income rental program. And then the renters then have to be vetted and certified by the program so that they're following rental standards and health and safety and those kind of things. And so that's actually how the Housing Assistance Program of Essex County got started way back when, and as doing that. What we're looking at here is moderate income, middle income housing, which is more workforce housing. So folks have to be able to demonstrate that they can, are employed, that they can afford this rent on an ongoing basis. There is no subsidy for the rent per se. It's just that the building is developed using state funding, using land that was already purchased by the town, so that the rents are affordable to someone who's making those salaries.
Okay, so that leads to a follow-up question, and then I have one more question.
Mhm.
And that's, do you have any kind of ballpark estimate of, we know from Keene what the houses roughly will sell for, but as far as the rents for some of these, do you have any kind of?
I wish I had that at the top of my head, but I don't, but I can follow up with you on that.
Okay. And somewhat in the same vein, how many apartments do you manage in Essex County? And so you have property managers who work with you?
We have 25 apartments at the Lee House currently, and then we have another 2 homes that we rent. One standalone home and then 2 other apartments.
That's in Mariah, the Lee House,
Correct. And then Westport.
and 2 in Westport.
No, a standalone home in Westport, and then 2 other apartments in Port Henry.
Should we open the floor to?
Oh, yeah. And anything else from the board? Would anyone like to ask a question of Roy or Caitlin? Go ahead, Sam.
No question, but my concern is, and you keep saying that it'll always be the town, it can't be sold and everything. I'm thinking of our affordable housing on Bonneview, 10 years down the road, it got sold. No more Section 8, no more HUD, it's all fair market. And please don't let that happen again.
So can I answer?
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Put it in concrete.
So what happened during that time period, Rod Seymour was supervisor. It was a private developer that bought the property, that got a grant. And as part of the agreement to get the federal tax credits, they had to keep it affordable housing for so many years. In this case, it's built right into, the town never owned that land up on Bonneview Road.
Right,
That's
right,
the point I'm
Right,
trying to make.
but.
In this case, it can never, it's right in the deed with the Cornings, that it can never, ever
Okay.
The other
That's
than-
my big
yeah.
concern, because
Yeah.
There was a sunset clause, right? That it had to be affordable housing on.
For so many years, I think
It was
they
30
got
years,
payment
wasn't
to
it?
of taxes for like 25 years, and during that time period, they had to, as part of their grant and everything else, they had to keep it affordable housing. But it's totally private now.
well, that's what my big concern is,
Yeah.
that this doesn't fall in that.
This
same
can never, it
category.
could never happen. It could
Okay.
never happen.
Remember that, Paula.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question or anything for Caitlin? Or what? Pat?
How does the sale work when, if you were gonna sell it? You can't sell the land, you're just selling the house?
Yes. Well, there is a whole process, and it involves a formula that is based on how the home has appreciated over time. If you put any money into it in terms of improvements, and it's you know based on the resale formula that you agree to when you purchase the home at the beginning. You then can take out a certain percentage of the profit on the home over time. And when you do improvements, we stay in conversation so that, for example, you're not putting an enormous addition on that is going to then make the house unaffordable for the next person.
For the land,
Exactly.
That's the beauty about this program. The land always remains ownership to the housing. We actually have one here in town right now, that you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it's worked out really well, and I spoke to the owners about it. They love it because it literally drove the purchase price of their home down by $100,000. So they got it for, I think, 100 and change when they bought it. The thing is, if they want to go to sell it, it has to be given back to the housing trust. Where they're making their equity is on the actual physical building, right? Am I correct?
That's correct. So they can pull some equity out, but
It's
we
not-
don't
it's not
want
a
improvements
windfall
out
tax.
of scale.
It's not a
Yeah,
windfall.
exactly. And we house sold that was in Saranac Lake earlier in the year, and we're actually working on a sale right now of existing trust homes to another buyer in Elizabethtown right now.
So
So
they
there's
can
22
increase the equity.
There's a formula. Past a certain point,
Yeah.
it's super complicated. And when we get to that point, we'll bring the ground lease and the resale formula and all those things in for you guys to review and discuss. If that's the way the town decides you want to go with those other homes. Right now, we're focused on
I
those.
don't know how many of you have ever owned a condominium where they actually have a management. You can't sell your condominium without being interviewed, having the purchaser being interviewed and approved by the board of managers of the condominium. Okay, so it is not, free for all sale stuff like that. They have to approve the next set of owners. It seems to me that what they're doing here is a cooperative kind of interest along those lines. And as long as Adirondack Roots sets up the rules, you're going in buying it with your eyes wide open. If I put it in, I'm not necessarily going to get my extra so-called equity out. I'm going to get it pursuant to a formula that has to be approved by them.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of safeguards that are built into these kinds of fractional interests.
Yeah, and it's not for everyone, but for someone who
Yep.
is struggling to get into a home, it makes it attainable.
Yep. So that's basically, there'll be a lot of paperwork that everyone has to read and try to understand before they go in, because the basic model is I own it and I can do whatever hell I want. And that's our sort of default knee-jerk reaction to ownership. And these will have a lot more rules than that, I'm assuming. That's just.
Has anyone mentioned yet that the houses in Keene, according to the paper, they'll start at 160,000? Someone brought that up today.
That is
Yeah. So that
the
will,
approximate cost, yeah.
so that will give us a good idea, since they're ahead of us. At some point those will sell and we'll have an idea of what they're.
An idea, exactly. And when the time comes for single family homes, that program, the Affordable Homeownership Program that we got a grant for to build those homes, that is still available. They just closed around for this year. So that or other housing programs. I mean, the state is well aware of the pressures on attainable housing for the workforce, and there's other funding streams out there.
So if there's nothing more, I want to thank Caitlin for coming and meeting us. Anybody else or anything? Okay, thank you. All
No,
right.
I just want to, like,
Okay.
set Tim's mind at ease, Laura's mind at ease, and the rest of you. This has nothing, this whole project has nothing to do with any political stuff or anything. This is gonna be good for our community. The most immediate need we have right now is apartments. The phase two is gonna be even better. But this is our community working together to find a real solution as private landlords are just getting out of the business. These units will always be available, hopefully to our locals. So feel good about it. Get your anxiety taken care of, but I just feel it's gonna be good for our community deep down, so don't worry.
I think it is positive. I just was more enthusiastic about the owner occupied.
I am too, but it's trying to find to help the greatest need first and then work through the process. And I'm sure the board, when they were applying for the grant, we have a resolution somewhere in the books where we authorized Adirondack Roots or APAC at the time to apply for a grant on our behalf. Dawn could probably research it for you, but yeah, it wasn't like
Now
this
that I
was
know
tough.
who I'm looking for.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Have
Sorry.
you
I
had
had
to
to-
evict people from their apartments in Mariah? Like how,
We have not, as a matter of fact,
how long have you managed that one for?
since 1986.
That's long enough. Okay, thank you.
And I am happy to come back and answer any other
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you so
that
much.
you have. It's my
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
And when's Dave
I'll
back?
help you out.
A couple, next week,
Okay, very good,
yeah, Monday.
very good.
Or you're not gonna stick around and make sure you don't miss it.
Well, no, because,
Bye.
because
Bye-bye.
thank you. So next on the agenda is, Doug is here to give us an update on how things are with SCR. We've reached the cap, and he can give us some feedback. We also suggested part two of the changes to the fees, and he gave us a list of planning board fee suggested changes that we could probably make. And finally, that uniform building code, he can sort of talk about what it is and how that works. So go ahead, Doug. How are the SDRs going?
Well, we're full,
Okay,
and we have a couple people on the list for when the STRs change hands. So we do have a list started, and as properties sell or people don't renew, they can fall into play.
so you were telling me earlier today that you have your first batch of renewals and inspections. Can you outline that for the board, what that's going to mean?
Yeah, at the end of the year, we have approximately 50 of them that are popping up for renewal and for inspections. And then almost every month after that, they start there's gonna be a handful every month for the foreseeable future.
So how's the inspection process going to work? These people, you send out, how do you communicate with them?
I send them an email and they send me the application, the new application, the new fee. I set up a meeting with them, go check out their home, check out their fire, smoke, CO, all that stuff. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. So we're looking at 50 of them at whatever the regular fee is. I think you and I calculated, we're looking to probably try to see if we can collect $20,000, roughly $20,000 before the end of the year with the renewal of the current STRs. Any questions from the board about STRs and what's going on with that for Doug?
Do you have a average inspection time? I know you and I have talked about this personally,
It
but
takes 15, 20 minutes,
Okay.
typically.
I have more questions. I'm sure I do, but that's all I can think of now. So,
Send me an email.
The planning board fees, were they included in your stuff?
Yeah, I gave them to you. Did you give them to everybody else?
I hope so.
No,
Pardon me.
that's what I was asking you about.
Oh, Don,
You
don't do
did,
that.
it wasn't at a time.
I think I may have emailed stuff, but I said you was
You
not.
might have emailed them. Yeah, you said you emailed them. Okay, not the one you guys. He sent an email, but I didn't look at it.
The fees that I suggested are just that, suggestions, and you guys can do whatever you want with them. But it helps cover the expenses for the newspaper ad and the postage and the secretary, all the expenses associated with that.
Okay. So no change in the application for the subdivision fee. Site plan, special use permit application, current fees, you said not listed. What's that mean? What should we do?
Well, there's no fee listed in the application for that.
Okay,
However, we charge $50 for the special use permit, because that's one of the choices of that application.
so what you're recommending is we just officially put in a resolution for $50 permit fee for both the site plan and the special use?
Yes.
Just make sure
$50, and that way, if it also turns into a special use, you add another 75 for the public hearing.
Okay,
So basically, site plans are $50, variances and any special use would be $125.
okay. So variance application, current fees $20. You're recommending we move up to $50. The site,
And variances always end up having a public hearing, so it would be, end up, be 125.
okay. The site permit application, so what are we suggesting here?
For the signs, there is no current fee. The application, there's no application for it, there's no fee listed. Special use permits require the sign be part of the special use application. In the code, it says either building permit or special use application. And so we've always used that as the charge as part of the public hearing fee. So that's part of the public hearing fee, is to include that.
Okay, so our resolution would say what? It's just the sign permit application will be,
I'm suggesting nothing on the signs, no changes whatsoever.
okay, fair. And then the public hearing, you have the current fees of publication, we have postages for notices, you're recommending $75, which would include the postage and the hearing notification in the newspaper, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay. Down at the bottom, you have handwritten site plan 50, variance, with would be 125. Is that what you're,
Or, yeah, variance and special use would be 125 total,
okay,
and a site plan would be 50. That's the breakdown of it, what it would be.
okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
Thank you for doing this. It needed to be done. Have you gone through and made sure that we're currently losing money on the planning board applications, and that's why this is being done? The costs of planning board applications, the fees that we currently charge don't cover the cost of operating the planning board with the notifications and the postage, et cetera. Will this put us in the black?
This should be very good for us. We should in a really good spot.
What are you running for office? That's. I guess we can revisit it and see if we're still down and losing money on the planning board.
I think at this time, we have no choice but to go with Doug's recommendation. I mean, I'm not gonna argue with him and say, oh, you're wrong, Doug, we should charge more.
No.
I mean, we're going with the person that does it every day, and we should
Yep.
be basing it off his recommendations.
And there's a famous title of a book called Number Go Up. So these numbers are going up, so.
I mean,
I don't,
obviously,
Laura?
okay, Laura.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't think that's what he was saying. I think he was saying that good to revisit in the future. But I think this is awesome. Thank you so much, Doug.
Okay, so,
Can I just say, it would be, forget it, we'll revisit it later on. It would be possible to figure out whether these fees will cover the cost of operating the board, but.
We already got that answer. Doug just told you that.
Okay.
so I'd like to, is there going to be a resolution made to accept the changes to the planning board fees as outlined by this particular email and by Doug's explanation?
So Doug, if somebody comes in and does an application for like a fence or something like that, is there any charge for an application for something like that?
Well, that's a building permit, that has nothing to do with.
You don't charge anything for, do you charge anything for that though on anything like that?
Well, that could have needed a variance.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was included in anything on
Or if it needed a variance, it would be 125.
125, okay, so that would fall under there, okay.
All right, I'm asking for
The
a
recommendation.
resolution, and I'll second it for the time being. Discussion, any further discussion on it?
I have thoughts about the building permit fees that we increased a few months ago. And since this is, if you would prefer me to wait till a different time to
I
bring those up.
think that's appropriate. We're now
when would you
considering,
like me to bring those up?
well, you can introduce it to the next meeting.
During my report?
Or, yeah, I mean, you've got any specific findings, but this motion is about the planning board fees. You want to talk about the
Well,
ones
it's
that
a
we
work
just adopted.
session, so I thought we could talk, but it's okay, I'll bring it up. later.
But we're in a resolution, we can talk about it.
We're in discussion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Doug. The Uniform Building Code update. So I had sent out a copy of the world's biggest suggested language from the state of New York. Could you sort of give us a brief outline about why these things come up? How did they come up? Things like that.
The town has to approve the local law for the uniform code whenever it's updated. The last time we did it, I believe was 2018, I'm not sure. But this new one came out in January of 2022. And it's taking us some time to bring it up to the meeting and vote on it.
Okay,
But we need to get up to speed on it. We
okay,
need to approve it and put it into our law,
okay.
current New York State Uniform Code.
Any questions from the board? I mean, we'll have to rewrite it, make it Wilmington
Right.
compatible.
I just want
Go ahead.
to state, and Doug can back me up on this, like, we don't have a choice. This
Yeah,
is
this
a
is
state
a
law.
state.
We have to do this and put it in our code,
Yep.
and we're already behind. So it's not really anything that there's a lot of discussion about. This is
Okay.
something that has to be done.
So I think what we should do is try to calendar that we can put together one that fits Wilmington along with the local law, proposed local law, saying this is the amendment to the Uniform Building Code, and go through that process.
Favor?
Yes, Laura?
Sorry, did you get my email? I sent some.
I did, thank you. Yeah, Dawn was starting to work on it as well, and I had said that you had gone through it too, and that I didn't make sure we're not duplicating things. I appreciate that. But that'd be part of the next step, I'm thinking, is adopting some of those changes and making it fit Wilmington. And then we'll have to draft a local law along the lines of the one that we're going to be deciding
Yeah,
at
thank
the next regular meeting. Anything else? I'm sorry, Laura, I'll keep talking, but go ahead. Okay.
The only thing I'm not really sure about, Favor, and maybe I'm just, when we've done this in the past, I mean, maybe it's wrote into our code, but New York State has a uniform building code. And, I mean, it does have to fit Wilmington, but what they state in their code is nothing for us to change. Wilmington has to basically adopt its code to fit to it. So when we accept the 2022 updated code of New York State, there's nothing that we have to do. Basically, we're saying we accept these changes and we're implementing them into our system. But we don't have to have a public hearing and everything on it. the way I ever remember it, because it's part of New York State Building Code. So we're not actually changing anything. We're updating ours to meet New York State standards.
Darren,
So
did
we
you,
can do that, we can do that by resolution, I think.
That's the way I ever remember doing it.
Okay.
Darren,
let's do it that
there's
way.
some things that are not applicable in it, and there are options that we have to choose, like an alternative 1 or alternative 2. So we definitely need to make edits to it.
Right. Yeah, we're not adopting it wholesale. Well, it'd certainly be wonderful. We can accept that by resolution.
We can look into that, but
Yeah,
that's
no.
the way I remember it. I don't ever remember doing
No,
public hearings and things like that, because we have to accept this code as part of our building code. I mean, there could be certain options based on the town, but then again, those options would be kind of set based on, population or things like that.
I don't think we were ever given options before.
Right.
This is something new, and they do have the different options. I don't remember us ever being given an option before. It was just accept this, and that was
Right,
it.
that's the way I remember it. So the options, I would have to look over to see what the option is. If it clarifies in there is, all right, for a town under 1,000 people, this is the option. For town over 10,000 people, this is the option. So the options may be options, but it may not be anything we have an actual choice on. It may be based on population or things like that.
Right, but in the actual document, it says, under no circumstances should this model local law be adopted as is. And then it
Yeah.
elaborates on it. So we definitely, at any rate, there.
Well, that's because you couldn't insert the names.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I'm going to suggest I'll take Laura's out and I'll and make it into a working document, make suggestions if I see any that are needed. And then we'll share it with the board and then see if we can get that in some sort of resolution.
Can we get hard copies of that?
Sure.
The document we
Boxes
create?
tomorrow.
Well, I guess I would need the document you create, right? Because you will be changing it, it'll be
No,
different.
yeah, no, if it gets, if it's modified and amended, I'll put hard copies in the box.
Thanks.
And
then-
I'll
thank you,
email
Doug.
as well.
Thank
Do you
you.
want the copy of the
Yes,
original
please.
they
Thank
sent?
you. Thank you very much. Just to clarify for myself, then, is it correct that we can be stricter in our codes than this New York State code, but we can't be more lenient? Is that?
But again, this is not like for STRs. This is building codes, like standards of construction and things like that. So why the town would want to take liability and put additional standards that we got to try to uphold stricter than New York State it would seem crazy that we would want to build standards. Let's just say frost protection, in New York State, and there's a standard of like 4 foot or whatever it may be. And then we're going to say, no, in Wilmington, we want it 5 foot. I don't know why we would try to be stricter than what New York State's telling us we have to be as far as just building code.
Well, it gets cold here.
By going stricter, you could be sued.
Right.
Is what he's getting at.
Okay. Is that it, Doug? Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Doug.
Doug.
Next is I have the assessors going forward. I gave everyone copies of some printouts from the state of New York. Fonzie Smith is retired as of today, and he will for 40 years of being an assessor and being very helpful. He left me one last piece of paper that I needed to sign, part of our annual certification of cyclical renewals and all that stuff. And we are down now to one elected assessor. And I'm just getting into some discussion with the board about what we see going forward would work best for the community. I was kind of surprised to find out that the 1970 New York State made an effort to eliminate the 3 assessor elected assessor option for communities. They left it in, so New York State was interested in either pass a local law now accepting 3 elected assessors, or you have a sole assessor and you forever lose it. In Wilmington in 1970, the first law they did in 1970 was they passed a local law electing to have 3 elected assessors, which was what we've had since then. And so then New York allowed 3 options. We have 3 board assessors of elected officials. We can have a sole elected assessor, or we can have a sole appointed assessor. And I gave you a copy of a colored map showing where the heck they have all these ones. Yep. So in Essex County, it's one of the holdouts where we still have three elected assessors in a number of the towns. And I've sort of mentioned before that sometimes when you hire the sole assessor, single assessor, it's a professional, and I'm getting a range of information from other towns about how much each town has to pay for the sole professional assessor. Jay pays $50,000 a year. Keene pays $50,000 a year. St. Armand, I don't know how they do it, but they pay $18.6 thousand a year. And I'm trying to hear back from the other towns that have gone with sole assessors. The other thing that we could do is really put out a request for people who are interested in being an elected assessor. It's not easy. The challenge is the state of New York, I think, has long wanted to sort of make it a hard requirement for those people who get elected to be assessors to get their certifications. It requires a lot of coursework. It requires a lot of this, and they're not forgiving if you don't make your coursework. They'll tell you, sorry, you can't serve, and they will, even if you're an elected official, they'll tell you you're now disqualified for being an assessor. So I would, if we could find 2 other people who would like to be appointed and want to step up and try to do that, that would be okay with me. I just want to get the board to think about if we're not successful in getting people who want to run and become an elected assessor. The options would be a sole elected assessor. We have one right now, which is Devin, or a sole appointed assessor, which is most of New York State.
Can I ask how much we currently are paying for assessors?
For the 3 assessors, I should know that, and I don't. I think it's
Around 19,000 probably.
19,000. Yep.
Thank you.
Does that include benefits?
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, they have. I know. They were getting some health insurance,
That's sponsored though, because he was grandfathered in.
but they don't
Have
get.
to pay an awful lot to get good health insurance.
Okay. Thank you, Don.
They can get it, but the percentage is not like the town employees. That was changed back before I was in.
You have to pay 50%.
Yeah. I was trying to remember what it was I paid when I did that.
But there's probably, you can contribute to retirement and the town will match it.
I don't think, no,
Well,
I
that's
don't
only
think
up
because
to-
you're part-time, they can start part-time.
Well, you can still rejoin the retirement system, but now
Right.
tier 6 is completely different, and that employee has to contribute a certain amount of money and things like that. So it's very.
I think the only real option is the retirement, or was the retirement system. If they've got another tier, it might not even be worth it for them to do that. But you guys always have the option of changing that.
Can I maybe correct something you said?
Sure.
The handout has a helpful chart, and anyone who's here who's interested would be glad to lend this out. It says that for the 3-member boards that are elected, the certification requirements are much less than for the sole assessors and for the appointed assessors. And according to this chart, and according to this handout, you just need to pass 1 class after you're elected, and then pass, I guess, essentially the same class if you get elected again. So it's 1 class a term if you're an elected assessor. But if you're a sole elected assessor, I think you have to take 12 credits, the same with appointed. So that is a pretty serious training requirement. It's less if there's 3, it's much less if there's 3. Another thing while I am, while I have the floor, I did find it very interesting in this handout that this seems to be one of the very rare times where New York State allows a referendum. I'm all for referendums. This could be something, that too is an option we could think about and leave it up to the town's voters. Like
Once you
just something
change
that,
to a 1, you can never go back either. The town clerk's association pointed that out to me at one of the meetings, that once you change that, because a lot of towns are having trouble with getting censors.
Well, I guess the problem with putting it to a referendum, and I mean, I understand your point there, Tim, is the reason that we'd even be considering this is because we don't have 3 people to run. So if the town says we're gonna keep 3 and then we never have 3, then what are we gonna do?
The state would step in,
Exactly.
is what would happen.
I guess, we don't know, we're in new territory, I suppose. We have to, I don't know how well publicized it has been that we really need people to step up and, for a part-time job, 19,000 a year is not horrible, so.
But it's not 19 for them, it's 19 divided by 3.
That's,
Oh.
it's not
Oh.
fair.
Oh.
It's 7,800 or something like
My
that for the
stand
primary,
corrected. It's
9,000.
horrible.
Almost, the others,
Right.
like below 5.
I stand corrected. 19 seemed okay.
Yeah, it's not 19 and they put in a lot of hours.
Yeah, I
Well-
mean, we face this, the shortage in part because of the difficulty to get the certification done.
Yeah, they were doing every Monday night and mostly every Saturday.
Well, they're there Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
As a regular basis, they're normal.
Seems like a pretty, I mean, if we think this is a thankless job, I mean, because they have, as far as I can tell, so little discretion. So it's just people being upset with you and that you can't even help even if you want to. At least we can try to help with our job,
So if you want to, I think, making a push to see if we have candidates, that certainly would, it's been working since 1970. We had Dana Peck was there for a long time, Fonzie was there for 40 years. So limping along with 2 isn't ideal, and eventually we'll get some sort of tap on the shoulder to say you should have a 3rd. Because we did that before. Randy had that, had a two assessor kind of situation going, and eventually they get tap on the shoulder, say you need a 3rd. So it's sort of a call out if we can continue to do it this way, but we'll have to find somebody people who are interested in. We can appoint them, and then they'd have to run for the election at the next time, but the appointment would be subject to their fulfilling the promises and stuff. So I brought that up because I wanted to bring it to your attention, get us thinking about it, talk about it at a meeting, and going forward with that.
Possibly we could think about raising the pay. If we paid them $10,000 for 3, that's still a lot less than 50 for 1,
That's right.
or 12.
That's a thought. And so the next one, of course, is the Justice Court going forward. We are highly likely to have 1 justice next year. And it seems to me that the amount of business our town court gets would be okay with 1 justice so long as we provided a clerk. That's my phone somewhere. We could provide a clerk for the justice because, like everything else, the state paperwork requirements are a pain in the neck. And our judge, it's Mike right now. I think he enjoys being a judge, but the paperwork requirements are a pain in the neck. You have to bank balance. You have to do this. You have to report. You report to the DMV. You report to the comptroller's office. You report to the office of court administration. And honestly, the court that has a clerk who helps out and makes sure those things are done regularly and takes that off of the judge's plate would, it's a more smoothly functioning justice court. That is something that I don't think we need to do anything about. If someone wants to petition or whatever to get on the ballot, it may be too late, right, Tim? Is that right?
It is too late,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
They're right.
There could be a write-in, I suppose. But I would hope that the board would see that, listen, we can do okay with one justice as long as we give that justice some clerical support. And that would be part of the budget process.
We've done that before. We've had to do that because we had no money.
So, any comments on the justice court? Because
As long as this, the path forward you've outlined, I have no issue with it whatsoever. Makes sense as long as it saves money for the town. As long as whatever the clerk ends up making is less than we would pay the other judge.
that's a challenge.
Not the same.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess the same, but
It's
ideally it
a
would.
lot of work.
It's a lot of paperwork. The judges get paid, what, 9,000?
Not a lot either,
Yeah, 9,000 a year. And just offer somebody $9,000 for a part-time clerk position when they're supposed to be filing reports and they're the ones answerable to the Court of Administration and all that stuff. I think it'd be a
Are
challenge.
they,
But, go ahead, Laura.
sorry, are the judges currently doing that right now? Is that how that it's been being done? If there
Yes,
wasn't
each one.
the responsibility of the judges?
Yes, each one files their own.
Okay. So hopefully we wouldn't need to go above the $9,000. That would not be beneficial.
Well, the question is, what kind of reports are being filed and what does the state of New York have to say about it? Okay.
If it costs more, do you think it makes sense to do it that way?
I personally am not really seeing much use in having all these justice courts in these towns. Some towns are busier than others. You have a lot more action. Wilmington is a net loss justice court. The cost of the two justices don't even, the amount of money we get in fees and fines doesn't come close to covering the expense of our two justices now. And in order for us to be excused from having a justice court, we would need state legislation with the governor signing. It's not, we are required to have a justice court. So,
But no, that wasn't my question. I'm saying going with a clerk, a judge and a clerk.
Yeah.
If it costs more, do you think it makes sense to go that way?
I'm just saying it all loses money. Yeah, I mean, to us, you're going to have judges, the paperwork alone on even our two judges with the minimal caseload is difficult for the town to keep up, and we're going to catch it from the state of New
I
York.
guess to answer your question more directly, Tim, is
Yeah.
we're in the same token as if we've only got one justice and nobody else runs, then the one justice
Then we have
is
no
not,
choice.
obviously not going to do all of that job for the same money. So at that point, the justice is going to say, well, I want at least the two justice money. And then we have to, right, and then assuming they're going to accept that. If they don't accept that, then we have to try to find another justice still,
And the
so.
other thing we did was we raised the judge, not a lot, but that cut down what the clerk was getting. So we've done it both ways in the past in the town.
I think we just have to see how busy the court system is. And then monitor the hours that way to see if we need somebody here 5 days, 5 hours
Mhm.
a week, 2 hours a week. If the court's not a busy court, they're not gonna need to be here that much.
That's a good point.
I mean, if it's somebody that is good at clerical, it shouldn't take them long to do it. If they got a good background in accounting, they should only be here 2 hours. It depends on who you're getting, what the background is. I mean, we run a busy court system.
You have a much busier court than we do.
And
Speeding
But
tickets?
that is because they've got state police there we need the state police on Wilmington Road, and then we have very lucrative.
But, you know, so I think it depends on who you're gonna hire and what their background is as well. It's what we're gonna be looking at as well.
That's a good point.
Randy?
Who gets the court cost? Does the town or does the state? Just curious.
The court costs?
Mhm.
Most of it goes to the state.
Not figured, but I was just curious.
Yeah, no, we get like, I'd say 30%.
He makes a lot of money from that, the traffic stuff, don't they?
We don't.
You don't?
The state does. Just like your hunting licenses and fishing licenses. The state makes the majority of those.
Okay, let's, so anyway, that's, again, needs me to, the budget. So, I'm, put that up because what I'd like to do, since these are all budget types of questions, I think I'd like to start working on breaking down the budget and presenting reports to the board, starting now. I think we're gonna have, maybe some structural changes in the town. If we can't get another assessor, what are we supposed to, you know, we're down to one elected assessor. And Devin needs to be asked about what, you know, how comfortable he is with that. And then one justice, an extra clerk and things like that. So I was hoping that we could start sort of the budget process now. I'm going to sort of break out things from Nicole that I will share with the board as well on specific expense items and revenues. I know the sales tax revenue is generally forecast to be less this year than what it was last year. This STR bed tax money is flat compared to with last year. Some of it's down, but it may go up a little bit. It's early days. So getting those things sort of lined up, trying our best to identify if we're going to do kind of new hires and how we're going to fund a clerk and things like that along these lines. So I know it's it's August, so I just figured I'm going to probably try to start working on that kind of stuff in a much more piecemeal way. And then we'll have workshops eventually the way town boards typically do. But I'm hoping to get started on the budget things coming up this month. Because as I said, I mean, to me, when you look at the events, for example, I certainly am encouraging we go with a permit system. We've set fees for out-of-town organizers. We don't let them use the beach in the summertime and things like that. And that way we would have to have somebody identified as the person in charge of how permits are handled, whether the certificates of insurance have been received, whether they're leaving deposits for us to clean up garbage and things along those lines. So that's sort of a structural difference in the town that I would hope to see the town go. That's my invent. That's where I think would be important to do. And so that's kind of why I'm bringing up the idea of getting a budget sort of started now and just outlining the areas first, and especially when there may be changes. So is there any comments about that, JC?
Yes. Although if you can go first if you'd like, Tina. Oh. The first comment I have is, are there that many outside organizations that use town facilities for events? It seems to me that nearly all of them are. I know that there are a few that are not based in Wilmington, but aren't the 75% roughly based in Wilmington or have leading members who live in Wilmington?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I look at it from you start with the Visitors Bureau hosts one or two, and then the Adirondack Sports Council has the 100K bike race. I look at it as anyone who is not specifically like we're going to have the town get together in August 17th. That's a local thing. Sports Council, they're outside. That Ride to the River, they're outside. I look at even, I think the Wilmington Historical Society, I think is a separate and should be treated as a separate organization, and we can give them help, which we do through the budget process by giving them money, and they use this place and things like that. But to me, if they're running an event, it's not the town's event. And so this year they got a certificate of insurance and all that stuff because, cleaner lines between the town who owns the facilities and people want to use them to host their events. It would just be a clear process through a permitting system. And then we have, we've got the Bike Fest. I'm not against, the parky, whatever the bike people are. But that's coming up. We have, that's coming up at the end of August. Then we'll have the Festival of Colors, which is a visitors bureau.
So would you consider, for example, take those two? Are those town events or not? No, so they would be charged
or not
they would be
charged, depending
a fee.
on the circumstances.
But if in your mind, do you believe they should be charged?
Not all of them. I mean, NICEF would like to use the beach for their bike swap. NICEF would like to use the pavilion in case of bad weather when they do their race to the castle. To use the pavilion festival field to do their award ceremony. As long as we regularize it, NICEF also loaned us the use of a van to take the kids to the beach the other day, and they didn't charge us anything for it. So it's going to be one of those things where you look at it and you say, okay, if you're making money, so I'll the Ride to the River just really fried me. That guy had vendors, all sorts of things, and just miffed about the way that was handled. So I'm not inclined to do that again without him paying a fee and signing a permit and doing everything properly and not be at the beach. So they have vendors, they're looking to make money, they're selling merchandise. If it's something like the Visitors Bureau that does that kind of stuff, that's for the good because it will help reduce the amount of money that they're looking from the town for the budget. Okay, if they make more money like that, they can make their own budget, but they don't necessarily, have to ask the town to pick up things if they're not successful. And then we could look at other types of ways that the towns, if they're not successful, then the town could move into an idea of being reimbursed for some of the expenses or things like that. It's just in the future. But this process would allow us to go in that direction instead of looking at it and just sort of piecing it together. Oh, it's your turn to do something like that. That's kind of the permitting and having a calendar. Ironman. I mean, Jesus Christ. The Lake Placid lacrosse people. I mean, what the hell are they doing? They're up there they come down here and just bomb our swimming holes. And if somebody's injured, it's going to be the Wilmington Rescue going over there to get them. There's a lot of spillover effects that we need to guard against, and we'll have to work a little harder in that one. But for the events in town, it just seems to me that if we get to a regular kind of process and a calendar and things like that, we can look at it and say, okay, we're okay with that or not. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry, I kept talking.
It's okay. Yeah, there's a lot there, and I agree with certainly most of it. I wasn't trying to argue with you. I was just trying to clarify for myself and anyone else how you were thinking about it, because you said if it's a town event, we in charge, and most of the events, as I said. However, I do think it would be logical to look at it. If they are making money, then the town's taxpayers shouldn't be picking up the tab. If you're making $9,000 on your event, maybe it could be split. maybe the town's taxpayers could subsidize it less than they have in previous years.
Yeah, I'm just,
If that's how you're looking at it, I would definitely be in favor of going in that direction. And that would exclude the get-together, which I think none of us would want to charge the get-together.
no intention of charging.
That's not the
Or,
raise.
or the Thursday night, music at the beach. That's not the point of it. Those are sort of community get-together type of events. What's that? Well,
But
you
here's
never
the
know.
thing, when you start saying that certain organizations get favored status, then they all feel that they should get favored status, and they all have legitimate reasons that they should get favored status. No one's against any of these organizations, but it has to be fair and equitable and even across the board. So yes, we love NICES, we love the Historical Society, and then we're back to square one. Where,
But depending on what each one is doing, depends on what they need insurance for too.
Exactly. That's kind of.
they do have different needs from the town as
Yeah.
well, so they all are different.
Historical Society needs road permits, they need different permits, everyone needs different
That's fair,
certificates.
that's fair, yeah, so, but and maybe it's hard to know exactly how to do it, and everyone probably has a different idea, but it could also be based on the amount of money the town contributes, the town's taxpayers contribute.
Are you guys okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Well, we'll get the meeting going.
Can I, so,
All right,
yeah, thank you.
they're feeling it.
Thank you. I'll speed through. The assessors, they make a little more than 6,000 a year, between 6 and 7. Are they busy all year long? Or is it certain times a year they're
Don?
The assessors make less than $5,000.
okay,
And yes, they have stuff they're doing down there. I don't know what they're doing,
okay.
but yeah,
okay,
they're there.
okay. And so the other points I wanted to make was, I guess we should start publicizing as best we can. There is this town Facebook page that a lot of people look at, that gets a lot of traction. It should be posted there that we are looking for these people if anyone's interested. And then just with the budget, something that I wonder about, and I'm not sure if there's any clarity about it, is we have this fund that's somewhat amorphous because last I knew it included donations as well as community enhancement, tourism, bed tax money. So I would like to know how much of just bed tax money we have in that fund currently. Those are the points I wanted to bring up.
Okay, we'll get them. We're working on the budget.
Okay.
We'll get those reports. The last thing, and I hate to do this boring stuff at the end of the meeting, but the bond, we have to bond for our dam project. We have a bond anticipation note. I've given you copies of that $900,000 is due at the end of August. The town did not go and get a full long-term bond because, on the advice of the fiscal advisors and everyone else, it's best for the town to make sure it collects first on the grant promises that were made by the state. And so last year, the town received the rest of the money that was promised by the state. And so now it's time to go to a long-term bond. I have given you a copy of a financial advisory service agreement. The time is sort of short. So what we're hiring is fiscal advisors, which they do the preparation of the long-term bonds for the school district, and they're quite well-known and reputable, and the town has been in touch with them before on the bond anticipatory notes. So this is a contract that allows me to sign on behalf of the town to get them for $3,500 plus the publishing, for them to start the process to get the long-term bond notice done. We will have to retain separate bond counsel, but it's imperative that we get this moving, and if I can sign it after a resolution here tonight, and I'll email it to them, they will get started on that, because we will be paying off Greene County Bank $972,000 on August 29th. So we're moving quickly to do that. So I left this copies of these for you. I know it's short. I just got this afternoon, but I've read it over, and I talked with him about the specific fees, and his recommendations are in the email that I sent. And so I'm looking for a resolution to authorize me to execute this agreement with Fiscal Advisor Services.
Make it.
I'll second it. I read it when I got here, so.
Okay, is there any discussion on this?
I'm sure it's fine. I'm just gonna abstain because I haven't received the email and I haven't even looked at it, so I'm just gonna abstain. But it'll still pass. So,
Thanks. Yeah, no, I got this afternoon at 2:00, so I didn't.
Okay, this is money, so we should do roll call.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so we have a motion and a discussion, and I have a roll call vote. It's, who's first, Tim?
abstain.
He abstained.
Laura can't vote.
Laura can't vote. Darren?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. Please, Paula.
Just a question that has nothing to do with what's on this work agenda. Is that okay?
Sure. No, public comments, public comment.
Our new dog control officer, his name is Derek.
Trevor.
Trevor, what's his last name?
Carl.
Is he, so if someone needs him,
I think I put his phone number now on the new letterhead, but
It's on the town website.
it's on the town website too.
town website, is he now active?
He is, he's been trained. We got a thumbs up from the New York Ags and Markets on our dog control training and so far. If I can just take a few moments, I'm sorry, you brought it up. I'm on the county dog pound task force.
Okay.
And what's happened is we have a contract with the SCPA. They are running up the white flag about how many dogs that they can take. And so the county is now starting a task force to look at building a special pound for the excess amounts of dogs. There are two types of dogs. One is the dogs that are sort of picked up by the police, after some sort of crime or something, some incident occurred. So they arrest so-and-so, and there's a dog there. The police will remove the dog. And then there's the other type of dog, which is the dog control officer, which is the town's responsibility. So we have that one. Go ahead, Paul.
Will he have office hours or is he on call 24/7?
Right now he's on call. I'm hoping that we could, as part of the kind of the structural idea, the county's going to end up taking up more of this because I don't think we're going to get a contract with the SCPA next year. And we are required by law to have a dog control officer and an agreement with either a vet or an SCPA or someplace to take the dogs. Now, the New York Agricultural Markets has now just implemented new building standards for the dog pounds, which are going to cost a lot more for people. So the county has decided that they, are going to try to push among the towns so that we share cooperatively where we can take the dog, because we had a problem in Wilmington with two dangerous dogs, and there was no room in Elizabethtown for the second dangerous dog. John was injured. The dog control officer from North Elba, she grabbed it and was sitting there thinking, I don't know what to do with this dog. And eventually the dog calmed down enough so it could go to, could be accepted. But we're not the only ones. Other towns have had 3 or 4 extremely dangerous dogs at the same time, and we don't have the facilities to house them according to New York requirements. So the county's thinking about all these things, and I'm hoping next year we'll have two parts to our dog control line item. I'm looking around to see if people want to be more like what Shirley Lawrence used to be like as a dog control officer, a local who you can call up because the dog's running around town. And then Trevor and someone else in J will have an agreement with the people in J for the more serious, dangerous dog type situations or for coverage in case we can't seem to get a local. So that'll be contract, and I'm hoping we can find somebody who may step in and give us the local kind of day-to-day stuff. We've had a couple calls already about, this dog showing up here, and they know whose dog it is. We just have to reunite them. So that is, I'm working on that one all with him. Good, Sam.
Oh, Trevor is not Wilmington, right?
That's correct. I talked to, Trevor is going to be probably the full-time dog control person maybe in J next year. But Matt Stanley and I talked about, when John was injured, sort of the pinch that Wilmington was in. So he said, I'd like this guy to start working with you guys because I'd like to, he's interested in the job. So he came up here and we're paying him for the remainder of the budget for that.
But he currently is Jay's also, and he does work for their highway department down there, so he's relatively local.
Yeah.
What's his last name?
Carl.
Oh,
Yes. That's it. So I'm sorry, that's long. I gave you the long thing about that, but that's who Trevor is. Anybody else?
I have, I think in this zoning, recreating zoning board of appeals,
Yep.
that we're going to pass at the next, well, I'm glad I opened this up. There are things in here that I think are left over from the previous law that shouldn't be.
Okay.
So I'll just go over them with you after the meeting, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
What we're having first is the public hearing.
Mhm.
We can make the corrections after the public hearing or during the public hearing, and then we can move it as corrected.
They're not material changes. The one thing that I did want to bring up, Laura said that, or made the suggestion that the alternates have fair opportunity to vote. And I think it would be better if it was equal opportunity to vote rather than fair, because fair is more subjective and equal is more clear.
Well, the scenario is that the alternate is not always just the first alternate gets the empty spot, right? So you have two alternates on the board and one board member's missing. It's not always the first alternate who gets to sit and decide on particular cases.
So equal would mean that they would alternate. Fair would also imply that they alternate. I just felt that equal was more clear, not a big deal, just a suggestion.
I just see it as a rotation because equal could mean that they both can participate at the same time. All right, so I'll read those. Anything else, Laura? Nope.
All good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I
Thank
have
you.
a motion to adjourn. It's
Make it.
5:32.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Oh, I get dry.
Thank you.
I should bring some Diet Mountain Dew. Oh, there's one right there.
I was running into someone a few days ago. She said, I saw you on the front page of the paper slamming a dew. I said, Thanks, Phil.